Hey everyone, welcome to Hump Day Happy Hour, hosted by Dennis in the Know. This is the webcast where dentistry meets real talk, real news, and just the right amount of sarcasm. We are pulling back the curtain on the industry. We're talking to the experts, the innovators, and the everyday clinicians. They're the ones out there doing the work, and there's no fluff, no filter, and there's definitely no sales pitches disguised as education on this show. If it's happening in dentistry, from clinical insights to regulatory curveballs or the latest scandal at the ADA, we are probably already talking about it. And yes, we are bringing the goods. So whether you're a seasoned doctor, part of the dental team or industry, a curious consumer, or maybe you're just here for the banter, we welcome you all to the show, because around here, we're not just in the loop, we're in the know. Hey there, dinks. Hey there, consumers. I am Dr. Jeff Horowitz. I'm with two of my best friends in the dental world, two amazing clinicians, two great people, Dr. Chad Duplantis and Dr. Jennifer Bell. So we're going to get this consumer-facing edition started talking about orthodontics, meaning, do we go with clear aligners? Do we go with braces? We're going to break that down for all of you. So for right now, I want to welcome my two buddies, Dr. Jennifer Bell, Dr. Chad Duplantis. How are you guys doing?
Doing great. How are you?
I heard it's someone's birthday.
Should we?
I think so.
Okay. Which song are we going with? We sang like 12.
Well, number one, your voice is better than mine. Number two, you know the words to that song and I don't. And I can just do the background noise.
Okay. You got to go
through the other song and then you can go into the real song. Like, you say it's your birthday. It's my birthday too.
Okay, but we're going to do the Beatles one, right?
Okay, let's do the other one.
Okay. When I get older, losing my hair, many years from now. That's your part.
Oh, it froze.
Will you still be sending me a Valentine? Birthday greetings, bottle of wine. If I've been out till 2:45, would you lock the door? Will you still need me? Will you still feed me when I'm 51?
Woo! 51? I thought it was 64.
The song is 64.
Our dear friend
is not older than you, Jeff. He's not older than you.
Damn, I'm the oldest one again.
Again, consistently.
Why does this keep happening to me?
3,800 shows later, still the same outcome.
No one is catching up. This is so sad for me.
No, each day this story digs itself a little bit deeper. You know?
Yeah, it really does. It really does. I got a big one coming up this year. But Chad, how was your birthday? Tell us.
Jeff, when you're at those numbers that aren't like 50, 55, 60, they're just kind of boring. But it was a great day. Staff treated me well. It was a good day. My wife treated me well. I haven't opened any gifts yet, but I think I have a couple.
Our watch is coming. We bought you a watch, but it's just not there yet.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But it is definitely on the way.
Yeah. So spoke to both of the kids. It's all good. So we're good. Yeah.
Well, that's good. I hope you had an amazing day.
It kind of sucks that your birthday's around a harvest moon, like full moon.
Yeah.
This particular time around.
Because I don't know that the consumers realize that it is true that dental offices get crazy on a full moon.
Yes. Things.
We're not saying that the consumers are crazy. We're just saying everyone is crazy, and the dental office is no exception.
That's what I was saying. Dental offices get crazy, but
weird pain. I will just say, and as humans, we can be honest about this. We all kind of react a little weirdly. Pain comes in that's weird, that you can't quite describe. You can't really figure it out. That happens really commonly around full moons. People's normal, even-killed emotional responses amp up a notch, or it just seems, and even our own staff and even the dentist, your tolerance level seems a little weird. I don't know, there's definitely something to the full moon. Maybe
Yeah, oh,
y'all
it's a
just shut
vibe.
down around that time. Medicine should just not operate during those time periods.
Oh,
So
speaking of
here's a
moon,
question for you all. Speaking of, and maybe it's full moon related, patients and consumers will appreciate this. Do you all think of people on a 6-month cycle? Does that make any sense?
Yeah, no, I
know what
do
you're
actually.
saying, like this person always comes
Yeah.
in August and
No.
January or
So,
whatever.
so like on Sunday night, and it was so weird. There was this post on one of the dental communities, and I was like, holy crap, I had that happen before. And it was like, one of these really odd dental phenomenons. And I'm thinking of the person that it happened to, and I walk in and they're on the schedule at 10 a.m. on Monday morning.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Tuesday night, I was thinking of somebody, and I walk in this morning and they're on the schedule. So it's just it's a weird phenomenon. I guess we can only explain it because we see each other every 6 months. Every 6 months as patients, usually. That's usually the standard protocol. But
Well, I always remember my patients that come in around the holidays because a lot of times they'll bring goodies, and certain patients are known for certain goodies. So
Yeah.
selfishly, yes, I definitely
You want to book them during that time period.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh no, we
No, I
don't
know
have
what you mean,
anything the
though,
other
Chad.
8 months. Yeah.
Somebody will pop in my brain, for some reason.
Yeah.
That I'll think of them, or I'll think, oh, I wonder how they're doing. Last time I saw them, XYZ was happening or whatever. And either they're coming in that week, almost as if, our circadian rhythms are on the same cycle now.
Yeah.
Or more recently, and I think this is a good reminder for doctors and for patients. More recently, I had a patient who went through a lot personally and also was starting to have some memory issues and stuff. She's starting to age, and she just popped in my brain on Sunday. And then her daughters popped in my brain because I see them as well. And so when her daughter came in, I asked how she was because I hadn't seen her in a while. But with the cyclical nature of a practice, sometimes you don't know if you just didn't see them, if they came in, or, they really haven't come in. And she really just hadn't come in. And so they were appreciative that I was thinking about them because we reached out and got her reconnected. And so she came back into the office. But I think we play a more important role in the lives of patients and how their families and the dynamics of their families. And we've lost that a little bit as a profession, and in full fairness. But I think when you have that relationship with your dentist and you can count on them to reach out to you during a death, or, just kind of love on you when you need it, or be there, or just checking in on occasion. To me, that's the relationship I think that patients really should be seeking, and glad to be a part of it sometimes.
And we're at a point where I think it's fair to say, I mean, some of us more so than others, but we're all seasoned within the profession, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know if any of you all had this issue, but I can speak to young dentists. Young dentists probably know every single thing that's on their schedule for the next 3 weeks. And if they don't, they're kicking themselves, whereas with us, like, quite frankly, I don't know what's on my schedule until I get to the office that day,
Yeah.
And it's not because I don't care by any means. It's just because you just kind of check out, you got to have your home life. You got to have that work-life balance. And, you just know that it was there for a reason, and you're going to take care of it no matter what. And I just remember those years in my younger days of practice where I was just so consumed by what was going on in the practice.
Well, not to jump in, Jeff, but really quick, I think the number of surprises are smaller and smaller. Like when you're young, you want to know the schedule constantly because you need to manage what's walking in that you don't know how to solve or fix, or you haven't worked it up yet, or you haven't reached out to a buddy or a mentor to ask them how to handle or manage a case. And not that we don't still do that, but the number of times in which we have to, reach out to our fellow colleagues or prepare heavily for an appointment coming in that day gets smaller and smaller for sure.
That is exactly where I was going with this conversation, is that I think, the longer you do this, the more you kind of get into more or less a routine of procedures that you perform and have done it so many times and are so well prepared for it. It becomes more and more rare that some oddball procedure that you don't do often is going to actually show up. And quite frankly, I think most dentists, the longer they've been doing it, they kind of start to push those oddball procedures away because they say, you know what? There's someone who does this a lot more than I do. They're probably better at it than I am at this point. They're, or certainly more practiced at it. And it would be in my patient's best interest to let them do it anyway. So
I'm definitely not worried about a molar root canal showing up on my schedule.
Exactly.
Or someone's going to hear from me. Like that's just not happening.
Dr. Ryan Walsh will be hearing from me.
Yeah. Now the only surprises that walk in are limiteds that I didn't see. I wouldn't have seen coming anyway.
That's right.
They're bringing in something new or different or crazy or weird or, whatever.
I'm curious from the patient's perspective, how they see that, what kind, how do they view our preparation and how do they view, how we handle running the practice? Because, from their perspective, they come in, they may sit in the waiting room for a while. And, there's always that thing of 3 hygiene patients who maybe got there after them, get called back first because that's right on schedule. But, the people on the doctor's side are on a different schedule. And, I always try to ask my patients and I always try to get their perspective and, walking in the room, I'll say something, especially if I'm 5 or 10 minutes late or something like that. I'll say, so, listen, I know we're running a few minutes behind here. I apologize. You probably saw some other people. What was going through your head when we did that? I hope you don't think we were, just playing favorites out there. And it's really interesting, when first of all, patients are thankful when you admit that.
Agreed.
And I think they do appreciate it when you ask their perspective without them having to get angry with you first.
I think you should just say, aren't you glad I'm not an ophthalmologist? Because you go there to die in the waiting room. I don't know what it's like in your states, but here, if you do have a significant eye issue beyond your normal optometrist and you have to go ahead and book the day. Take the whole day off from anything that you have to do. You'll wait in the waiting room for 3 hours.
Yeah.
To finally get to a room to wait another hour to finally maybe see the doctor that day.
In my North Myrtle Beach office, we share a space with a retinal specialist. And I'm just amazed at, they'll bring them back and they'll do part of the exam and then they'll put them back in the waiting room for, however long. And they're perfectly fine. It's like they've come to expect that there.
Yeah.
But you're right. It's, when it comes to us, we don't get quite the leeway that, that they do.
No. Well, I also am mortified. I mean, if we seat you a minute or two late, I'm already panicking, stressing how we're going to make sure everybody gets seen on time. I don't want that hamster wheel to get off at all. It needs to run and run well. So
especially the earlier part of the day, the worse it is.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. All right. Well, should we talk a little news before?
Yes, I was going to ask you. That's why I was allowing you to go into it, because I didn't know if you were going to have a news segment.
I would love to go into a little news segment. If you don't mind.
Do it.
All right. Well, I thought this was an interesting story because actually it was just this weekend that Baltimore Ravens QB Lamar Jackson started talking about his diamond grill. And it brought up an interesting topic for myself as a dentist, thinking, do I know how to do a diamond grill? And if someone walked in and wanted a diamond grill, where would one as a dentist go to get training to do a diamond grill? Or for that matter, even a gold grill? So I think, is this the new evolution of aesthetic and cosmetic dentistry? There's one arm of cosmetic dentistry that wants to put teeth in patients' heads that make it look so seamless and natural you would never even know that they had cosmetic dentistry. And then there may be a potential new arm developing where patients are saying, screw it, I want it to look like XYZ because this is where I am in my life. This is what I value. This is what I see as aesthetic and beautiful. Can you provide me that as well? And I think this is an interesting debate within dentistry as well. But anyway, he highlighted his new diamond encrusted grill he wears during games just as much as he does off the field. But of course, he's going to wear a protected mouthpiece over top of it, but he's really proud of it. And I think it's an interesting opportunity for dentists to start talking about what does it really mean to do cosmetic dentistry. Now, in the dental world, an interesting update, Henry Schein has now sued Vine Dental, and subsequently Vine Dental is also suing Henry Schein. If you're not familiar with these two companies, Henry Schein is one of the larger dental suppliers in the country. So when your dentist is ordering cotton rolls or Q-tips or whatever else they need in their practice, they use a distributor like Henry Schein to provide those products to their office. On the converse side, Vine Dental is a software that is used to process and move claims through to insurance companies. So it's a middle partner between all of that. Most of these companies are supposed to work well together, play well together because they have software institutions that are supposed to interact. And I think there was a breakdown in that process. So these two really gigantic companies are now suing each other. I think the concern obviously is on the consumer end. What will that really mean? Is that going to impact your ability to work with Henry Schein or your ability to work with Vine Dental? And will those two then not talk to each other anymore? They're two big players, so it could have some impact on the local level for dentists. Recently, within the last 6 years, the ADA had also filed a class action lawsuit against Delta Dental, trying to work through some of the nuances there's a lot of issues with dental insurance companies with an antitrust. There's a lot of monopoly type activity that happens with insurance companies. Take the Northwest, Pacific Northwest, for instance, where a specific dental insurance company has about 98% market share. It becomes very difficult to negotiate to the benefit both of the patient and of the practitioner. And ultimately, the insurance company kind of takes full charge. Well, the ADA was trying to sue and build a class action lawsuit with other dentists against Delta Dental for some of that antitrust violation. The initial court hearing was denied as a class action lawsuit status, which would have offered benefit to all of the dentists that were involved. So they have the opportunity to appeal. They would have had to appeal by Monday. I haven't heard if that happened or not, and if this case will go on. There was another case that Delta Dental was being sued by a group of dentists, I believe in Indiana, that also got overturned as well. So it would appear thus far that we're not being super successful at getting the attention of the insurance company. But on the flip side, the ADA is getting more aggressive with their language and going against insurance companies for the downgrading process. So as an example, if you go into your dentist and you get a tooth-colored filling material put in a tooth, the insurance company might often downgrade that to a metal filling. Why? Because historically, metal fillings were paid on a cheaper fee schedule. So they'll downgrade your filling to a metal filling, which is not what was done, and then pay based on that fee schedule. So not only are you not getting your full value of your reimbursement of the 50% or 80% that you should have received for that restoration, now the dentist is also not getting compensated fairly as well. And the whole procedure is being miscoded to something that wasn't actually done. So we're getting some stronger language going against that. Whether that will have any impact or not, forgive me for being a bit skeptical that I think maybe no. Another interesting update, which actually impacts most industries in the US, but specifically will obviously highlight on a dental perspective. A lot tighter language has come out about visas for visiting the US and also to come for work visas. As of, let's see, what's the date? As of October 2nd was the date, but the deadline was September 20th. If you wanted to come in and provide an application to be a worker in the US on a worker visa, an H-1B. You will have to also pay a $100,000 fee. The concern is that there is a huge gap in faculty education at the universities for dental schools. And so they've relied pretty heavily on these H-1B visas to bring in foreign trained doctors to teach and educate American students. So if the additional burden of $100,000 in order to come to the US to also obtain a job in the faculty of dental schools would also require you to pay $100,000, that might become a rate limiting step for those foreign trained dentists and faculty members to come to the US. So I think the ADA is getting involved, obviously, to have conversations about the impact. I think medicine might get a carve out. I've heard some different stories that medicine may get a carve out from this particular nuance of the 100,000, but we will see. My guess is it's primarily focused on the tech industry, but obviously when we make these broad sweeping rules, there's downflow on that. The last thing I wanted to highlight for you is just in general, kind of what's happening on the back end for dentists and compensation and how we're able to continue to make practices successful and able to continue to serve their community. There's a couple of things going on in California, specifically trying to address some of these issues. You may not be aware, but sometimes when dentists do procedures, insurance companies will reimburse the dentist on a credit card, like a debit card. But then when they run the debit card, it takes another 3% off of that. So while they're already taking a deduction on your contracted fee, they've already reduced their fees to do that. They probably ate the 3% from the credit card that you, as a patient, asked to use to pay your copay. Now, when the insurance company is paying them, they're also being asked to take another 3%. And for some states, it's very difficult to go back to the insurance company to demand a paper check or some type of bank transfer. California specifically is trying to make that process incredibly straightforward and easy so that their doctors can be compensated in the way that best meets their needs. In addition, they're also working pretty strongly on some stuff with Delta Dental as well. Seems like they're being targeted by several different states to continue to make it a more equitable playing field for insurers, the insured, and for the doctors who are participating. And with that, that's the news.
I would like to add one more thing sorry, I was bringing Jeff up, but you mentioned something earlier. You mentioned a lot of things that were very valuable to consumers, but one of the things that's really valuable is that even though they downgrade something, it does not mean that the insurance company is saying that it was not necessary.
That's right.
The insurance company cannot make any clinical decisions.
No, but it does. The point that you're making, Chad, is really important because all it does continue, all of these nuances that the insurance company does to say this is not a covered benefit for whatever reason, or we're going to downgrade it to an amalgam because we don't want to pay for a composite, which is really silly. Honestly, it's totally ludicrous these days. All I'm saying is, or the other piece of that is, it really is continuing to erode the trust between the practitioners and the patients. And Jeff brought that up, last week. We've talked about this ad nauseum on the show. What we used to be was the most trusted profession. People really depended on their dentist for honesty. And in fact, I feel like I have those conversations on a daily basis with patients, even about their own medical stuff, like advocating for them, telling them to go be their own advocate, to push them to find answers to things that don't make sense, because I want to be that trusted member of their community. But things like insurance companies telling patients that a crown that I did wasn't justified, and therefore they're not going to pay for it, even though I agreed to do it. The patient understood and agreed that it was the best treatment option, and we moved forward with that plan. Then when they get the denial and the insurance says not medically necessary or not warranted, it just eats a little bit away at the trust that we're trying to build with patients, to say, well, if you look at my record, of how many composites I do versus how many crowns I do, I think it's pretty clear. I do a lot more composites than I do crowns. So I don't just go around willy-nilly and throw a bunch of crowns at people saying, oh, you have a 2-surface composite. It obviously needs full coverage. I mean, we're just gonna, anyway.
Well, I always tell patients this. Contrary to popular belief, the insurance company has one goal, and that is to make money. They are a profitable business, God bless them, and they're trying to make money, which means that in order for them to make money, they have to decrease what they send out to the practitioner on behalf of the patient.
So I'm going to play devil's advocate here, Chad, because in the patient's eyes, a lot of them think that we too are just, that we have one goal in mind, which is to make money. I mean, and honestly, the truth is that yes, we have to be able to make a living. It is the business. It is the way that we provide for our families. Now, the difference is where we used to have that well-earned status of being so trusted, the patient never questioned that. And really, dental insurance didn't even become an issue where someone would question what we were doing. Until the late 70s, really. And so it's a fairly new phenomenon. And yes, you're right, Chad. I mean, the insurance company only has that one goal. Dentists, and I think I speak for probably 99% of dentists, really want to earn their patients' trust. And yes, we want to make a living, but we also want to be trusted. We want to be known for excellence in our craft. We want to be artists. We want to be all these things. But to your point, Chad, the insurance company only profits when they are able to hold funds back. The longer they keep monies in their account, the more money they make, and they have shareholders that they have to be accountable to. And so we're, if you think about this only being a phenomenon that's occurred since the late 70s, you have to think, it's been the wild, wild west. I mean, that's just not that long. We're only talking about the last 50 years that this has been going on. And so, we're still in what I would call a trial phase for what everyone can get away with, and that's kind of scary.
But the bottom line is that I think that, speaking for the three of us and the majority of our profession, we have to practice in an ethical manner. And ethics are held very highly in all of our practices, and we're never going to do anything that's not in your best interest, and nor are we ever going to not make the best clinical decisions based upon your needs and your health and your dental health. So I think that needs to be stated as well. So,
I mean, I couldn't agree more, but I know that sometimes that this relationship with insurance companies that we have now, where we are questioned, can really get in the way. And I know that there's some people out there that think that our primary motivation is making money. And so, I just think we kind of, we have to understand that it can look that way to patients when those letters come across, as JB said in our news segment. It really does erode away at that trust that we've worked so hard for hundreds of years in dentistry building with our patients. And it wasn't until, the insurance issue came about that we started to see that relationship erode. And it's just based on dollars and cents for the insurance companies that's happened.
And that's not SENSE cents. It's CENTS cents, correct?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Yeah. So, speaking of which, I think since we're all clear aligner or Invisalign providers, that's a great segue into tonight's.
And dog owners too.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry, dang it. Puppy is in overtime tonight. But since we're all clear aligner providers, we all treat in house and we all refer out, and I think that is a great segue into our topic of discussion tonight, which is clear aligners versus metal brackets. So let's get started.
Jeff, can I get you to open the topic up? Because of the three of us, you have been trained both on traditional hardware as well as clear aligners. So I think you probably have the best understanding of advantages, disadvantages, biomechanics, where they excel, where, and all that stuff. And I think from a very unbiased perspective, I think you could come from a place of true experience, because I've never placed metal brackets. I only see them coming through my practice and being part of their case that we're managing it with the orthodontist. I think, Chad, you're pretty much in the same boat there. So I'd really love to hear Jeff's perspective to kind of start this off on his journey, kind of building your resume, if you will, and then pros and cons, benefits, advantages, disadvantages, etc.
And so, Dr. Horowitz, as we start this, I'm just going to ask you a question.
Sure.
Can my case be completed with Invisalign, or do I have to go to the orthodontist and get brackets?
That is a loaded question on all fronts. So, some people would go as far as to say, do I have to get my Invisalign from an orthodontist? Because when I first started doing Invisalign, the only people who were allowed to provide it were orthodontists. So it's really been very interesting watching what's happened in the world of tooth straightening, if you will. And for everyone out there, orthodontics goes very far beyond tooth straightening. That kind of may have been what orthodontics was a long time ago. But orthodontics is about so much more than that now. So as a little bit of background, when I started my dental practice in Conway, South Carolina, which is a suburb of Myrtle Beach, although it's kind of getting to be vice versa these days with the way Conway has grown. But when I moved here, we only had one pediatric dentist, one orthodontist in the entire county. And the area was beginning to grow pretty quickly. And I was opening a new practice, and I was hungry for new patients to treat. And so I decided if there was a big shortage of dentists that could treat children and provide their orthodontic care, that I would go off and learn pediatric dentistry really well and learn how to provide orthodontic treatment. And the only option at that point, there was no such thing as clear aligner therapy when I started this in the early 90s. There were some prefab aligner trays that you could use, but certainly nothing like the clear aligners that we see now from Invisalign and others. So contrary to what most people understand about specialties in dentistry, general dentists can provide just about any treatment that they want to, whether it be orthodontic treatment, endodontic treatment, root canals, gum treatments. You don't have to be a periodontist. Now, what we do strive for is to have the education and the knowledge and the skill and the experience to be able to provide those things at the same level as a specialist. So the distinction is that most dentists who say, I extract third molars, or I do root canals, or I do that, we're well within our legal scope to do that. And we are certainly within ethical scope if we have proper training. So instead of doing an official residency where you go for a certain number of years, you take a board exam from, an orthodontic board exam or an endodontic board exam or a pediatric board exam. You can go off and get whatever education. The distinction is just that the general dentist is not allowed to call himself an orthodontist or an endodontist or a periodontist. So that's just some background information for everyone out there. But having said that, instead of doing a 2-year or 3-year residency program in orthodontics or pediatrics, I went to Atlanta 1 weekend a month over the course of 4 years. And I learned everything about providing orthodontic treatment, about expansion, about growth and development, about pediatric care, interceptive care. And so I was very comfortable early on in being able to provide orthodontic treatment for my patients. And so I did that. And a lot of what we were learning in the early 90s was about getting away from all these extractions that were happening, taking teeth out for braces. And so with that, we started to see an increase in the number of what were called functional appliances, where we were expanding kids, making arches bigger instead of taking teeth out and making them smaller to try to make space. And with that was the beginning of aligner therapy too, which was, how do we make a tray that will move the teeth as opposed to doing that with metal brackets. In the early days, really any difficult movements, and when I say difficult movements in orthodontics, severe rotations of the teeth, making the teeth come into the mouth more, which we call eruption or extrusion, making the teeth go back down into the gums, intrusion. Those were the more difficult movements.
Skeletal.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All of that, any skeletal concerns, the only way that we had to address that was with traditional mechanics and metal brackets, which is why you didn't see many general dentists doing orthodontics at that point. But with this increase in functional appliances and with quite frankly, some of the technologies and the materials that were coming about, it was realized that there were some patients who were good candidates to be using removable appliances in order to move the teeth, and that for patients maybe who had hygiene concerns or lack maybe the manual dexterity to be able to clean the teeth well with all those brackets and bands on the teeth, that removable options were very quite viable. We saw Invisalign come onto the market with aligner therapies, and really at the beginning it was just for very minor movement and really not comprehensive care for changing skeletal patterns or for doing these large movements that I just mentioned. And in the beginning, they only allowed orthodontists to do it. When I submitted my first cases, I had to kind of put it under the name of an orthodontist just to be able to provide those cases. And as time went on, eventually they opened it up to general practitioners because they saw that, that with the right training, that general practitioners were certainly just as capable at providing those kinds of therapies. And it's been really interesting since the late 90s when this really became popular. It's been really interesting watching how many more things we could do with aligner therapies that we never thought that we could do without traditional braces. And so I kind of went from a place where my practice was probably 80 to 90% traditional braces and 10% aligner therapies or removable appliance therapies to almost the opposite. We're probably like 80% now aligner therapies and 20% orthodontics, because these products, these aligner products, have just become so excellent that that we're able to just provide a lot of care, and it just opens up a whole new population of people who maybe would not have otherwise had the orthodontic care.
I agree. As someone who hasn't done traditional bands and brackets, I know some of the limitations of what I can and can't do, but I want to address some of the things that I think are the advantages of clear aligners, and you dispel me or say, yep, absolutely. Number one, I think, is hygiene. The fact that you can remove them to do appropriate hygiene, having cleaned, or participated in the hygiene appointments today of 8 people in metal bands and brackets, and getting around all of that hardware, and actually now have seen a lot more patients sensitive or allergic to the nickel titanium. That big puffy gum presentation. A lot of that is actually sensitivity to the nickel. We like to blame plaque, but a lot of times it's actually metal allergies. So I think first and foremost, hygiene. High caries risk patients, what's the data say? Do we see an improvement in the ability to manage that with patients with clear aligners versus metal bands and brackets? For parents who are sitting here going, debating between metal bands and brackets versus clear aligners, if they can be compliant with the clear aligners, I tend to favor it simply because they can at least remove it to do normal hygiene procedures. What do you think, Chad?
Sorry, I was muted because of my dogs acting like, you know what. But no, I totally agree. But I think you hit the nail right on the head, with the hygiene. But you also mentioned inadvertently the biggest problem with clear aligner therapy by saying
Compliant.
4 words. No, you can remove them.
Yeah.
And so that's where we run into issues in certain subsets of the patient population.
Well, could you also make the argument, because I had this discussion with a patient this week, and I think most orthodontists would agree with me. Orthodontics in general is not a participation sport, or not a mandated sport, meaning we like to think that just slamming metal on people will force them into compliance. But many times they have to wear elastics, they have to do their procedures, they also have to do their hygiene procedures, right? So when I have patients failing at Invisalign and they think I'm just going to go cement a bunch of stuff on their teeth, we're still only going to get a percentage of the outcome because it is a participatory sport. We have to participate. Whether we do traditional bands and brackets, and you do force a higher level of participation, but I've also seen kids figure out the windows on the new brackets, and they can open them up and pop their wires out. So I've also seen that. But if the case requires turning the key for this expander, or wearing elastics, or doing, any of this, or God forbid, brushing, then we also see the issue of compliance on the other side of that. So I think it's fair for patients to really understand that orthodontics in general, the movement and straightening of teeth, requires the buy-in of the patient, whether they're 11 or 95, and they want to go through this process. It really only works for patients who want and desire the outcome.
Well, and also, one of the things that you failed to mention, but I know that you're thinking it too, compliance is not only switching trays, brushing your teeth, doing everything that the orthodontist told you. Don't mean to offend anybody by this, but it's showing up to the appointments as well.
Yeah,
that's a big factor of it too, because what you gain
that's a great point. That's a great point, Chad. Because if you think about it, for the consumer to help them understand, because we talk about this a lot when we talk about clear aligners, I can give a patient 12 trays. And what does 12 trays mean? They can go home and do dictated care, right? They can change their own trays. I'm not their rate limiting step. They don't have to come see me to unlock the key to keep moving, right? But in orthodontics, traditional orthodontics, you go, I don't know, Jeff, you tell me how long the wires are active, but if I go in and I tweak and do all these things to make movement start to happen, that works for, we'll say 2 to 4 weeks is what I'm guessing.
Yeah.
And then
well, some of the nickel titanium, there are some heat activated wires like nickel titanium that you can go up to 8 weeks. But in general, you're going to get most of the expression of whatever wire you put in that 4 to 6 week range.
Right. So if you don't come in for your routine checks, you stall out at some point, and you're wearing braces, but you're not really going anywhere. And same is true with
depending on the mechanics. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but depending on the mechanics, so what's actually being done, you can actually overshoot if somebody doesn't show up. So you put a certain type of spring that is really there to be, meant to be there for, 2 weeks. And you say, you've got to be here in 2 weeks because I don't want that tooth to keep moving. Yes, you can put.
Tell me about it.
So I'm glad it's him and not me. However, I'm going to go ahead and jump in right here since he's kind of stalled out. But, we start talking, and one of the things that I share with all of my patients in regards to clear aligner versus traditional brackets and wires is that, for some cases, the minor tweaking and the minor movements are so very important. And an orthodontist can actually utilize their hands and their skills to modify brackets, to bend wires, to move wires, certain types of wires, certain types of brackets to make skilled movements. However, one of the things that we need to understand when we're trying to make that argument nowadays is that I just looked to verify. Several years ago, about 5 years ago, Invisalign was incredibly excited about 6 million smiles. We've got 6 million smiles out there. Today, as of today, it's over 20 million smiles. And every time that number is increased, it's like that new commercial out there where the guy's talking about, oh, we're changing the sign and it's changing every single second, however many, million people we've got doing this. But every time that number increases, what else increases is their capabilities to modify, to change the way that they do things. So instead of brackets, we have buttons, attachments, whatever you want to call them. And if you want to look under a microscope or closely in the mirror, they're all different shapes. They've got different purposes, and they're for those minor orthodontic movements. So a lot of the points that we made years ago aren't really relevant today because things have changed so much. The capabilities of the clear aligner systems have changed so very much over the past several years. Did that make sense?
Yes. And Chad, it's good to be back.
Welcome back. Welcome back.
It had nothing to do with us, man. We carried on, dude. It wasn't my computer.
I don't know what happened.
There is a very awkward photo of you, though.
Yeah. I'm sure. So, to your point, Chad, what you said about the capabilities of a lot of these aligner systems now, like Invisalign, are, it used to be that in the decision tree, when a patient would come in, and it would boil down to 3 things when in helping a patient make the decision of which way to go. And those 3 points were basically mechanics, hygiene, motivation. Those 3 things. Mechanics, hygiene. So what kind of movement am I trying to make? What's that?
You know me. Could we make those 3 M's?
We can.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry,
Anyway.
that's my OCD kicking in.
Or are you going to change
I know where you're
hygiene to
going
an
with this,
M?
'cause-
Is it
yeah.
a silent M like Pfizer?
I'm
Is it
thinking on it.
silent?
I'm thinking on
The
Okay,
first
all right.
decision, was always based on mechanics early on. It was like, what am I trying to do? Am I
Correct.
am I changing the jaw relationship? What, and if it was any kind of difficult mechanics, that pretty much dictated where I was going with the case. And then it was hygiene and motivation. Now it's exactly the opposite. So hygiene is always first. What is the patient's ability? Because so many patients we treat are now elderly, and seniors, and do they have the dexterity to clean around the braces well? And maybe we sacrifice a little bit on the tooth movement side, although we don't have to much, just to be able to keep the gums healthy and everything. So now for me, it's really hygiene first. Then what are the motivations? Are you someone that needs more self-care as far as I travel, I'm out of town a lot, I'm not going to be able to make those appointments. So if you're able to offer me something where I can do telehealth and I'm responsible for changing my aligners out, then that therapy is going to be more successful. It just depends, how well can you clean? Then what is it that's motivating the patient? And now mechanics is third, because there are very few movements that I cannot achieve with clear aligner therapy. We're expanding arches, we're correcting skeletal patterns. And then we also have to consider that it's not all black and white. I have a lot of cases that I treat with aligner therapy, and I tell the patients, look, one of these movements is really difficult. I may cut your trays at some point, or aligners. I may cut them at some point, right? Put a bracket on a couple of the back teeth, fix that, and we do a refinement to the case that we're treating, and we move right on. So it doesn't necessarily have to be one or the other. I'm just glad that we're at a stage where we talk about comprehensive therapy now, and it's really more about catering to the patient's needs regarding, gum and hygiene motivators, and about personal motivators as far as time, what they're willing to do, what they're not willing to do.
So sorry, I'm going to interrupt because you know me, I'm big on terminology. I'm going to bring something up that you brought up that I think is very, very powerful that I want to break down for just a second. When we think of orthodontics, what do our patients think of? What do they want to leave with?
A pretty smile.
They want to leave with straight teeth.
Yeah.
They want to leave with straight teeth. However, I think it's really valuable that we bring up this something that Jeff briefly hit upon. If we break down orthodontics, it's treating irregularities in the alignment of teeth and jaws. Orthodontics is not just teeth. Orthodontics is teeth and jaws. So it's both skeletal and dental. So we need to really take that into consideration. And you were bringing up a second ago, Jeff, and I'm breaking this down, not necessarily for our colleagues, but really for patients, potential patients, consumers out there, that orthodontics is not just straight teeth. We've got to take into account, yes, we want you to have straight teeth afterwards, but we want you to have straight teeth that are functional and in the proper position for longevity, for health, and not just for dental health, but for overall health as well, because the skeletal components of it really can play into what's going on in your body.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, it's funny that you say that, Chad, because, in my early part of my career, the majority of the cases I was treating were adolescents making straight, pretty smiles. That's, and yes, we were correcting some skeletal relationships along the way, but that was really, what most people were coming to me were for straight, pretty smiles. And now more of the orthodontic care that I provide is to improve airways and to improve jaw joint relationships and bite discrepancy. So really the straight teeth are the bonus in that system, and the proper function, relief of pain, improvement of airway are the primary factor for most of the patients that I'm treating now. And I know, JB, for you, one of the things that you speak about so often is about using orthodontics as a preliminary factor, or as a preliminary way to put the teeth in a place so that if you're doing a cosmetic case, that you may not have to remove as much healthy tooth structure. So even for a patient who may be coming in for veneers or to get a prettier smile, doing orthodontics now is, it may not be the final step. It may be the preliminary step to put the teeth in a position that, one, the cosmetic work is going to function properly, but two, to allow your dentist to not have to remove healthy tooth structure. Because one of the things that we've realized is that one of the ways that we can keep our patients the healthiest is by removing as little healthy enamel as is humanly possible.
Yeah, honestly, it's being involved as little as possible, right?
Yeah.
The healthiest patient is the one that just comes in for their cleaning every 6 months and they never
100%.
need me to pick up a handpiece. Every time I pick up a handpiece, the life expectancy of that tooth goes down. So I love that you brought that point up, because we stress that a ton. And it's not just a lot of these cases where patients are motivated to want to improve the way their teeth look is because the teeth have worn down and broken down over time. And it could be from acidity exposure, like reflux or even bulimia. It can be from heavy clenching and grinding where they've worn them down over time. It could be, frankly, premature orthodontics, where we did the orthodontics at a very early age. And then they had these massive growth spurts in their late teens and 20s, and it destabilized the teeth over time, and they've sort of worn down. So there's a lot of reasons why the aesthetics of the case destabilize as the patient ages. But as a responsible dentist, if we don't look at the function and how things are working first before we go in and try to make things look pretty again, we set the patient up, number one, to buy things that will eventually break very quickly because we'll own the same problem as before. And two, we're really not setting them up to be healthy. And Jeff's point is incredibly valid. When we can put teeth back where they belong, then we can come in oftentimes with very conservative dentistry and maintain the most amount of healthy tooth structure possible, so that the life expectancy of that tooth is as high as it can be. I always say to patients, my job, weirdly enough, is to make sure the day that you die, all of these teeth go with you. And if we've done our job correctly from a preventative perspective and from managing you from a dental perspective, we're going to get as close as possible to that. I can't control what happened before you got here. And we have to maintain and do what we need to do moving on beyond that. But my goal as I look at your teeth on a daily basis is to say, what's the least amount of involvement I have to provide here in order for you to leave this earth the same day that tooth number 14 also leaves. I want it all to go together so that, you were able to function and eat and be social and smile in pictures. And, that is the thing that I see is the most psychologically catastrophic for older patients, is as they age, when they lose teeth and the function and their ability to eat in front of other people, their ability to use a denture comfortably, is such a psychologically devastating event for them, that you often see kind of their soul sort of leaving out. Like they've lost their will. Because if you think about every holiday, every big event, your birthday tonight, Chad, I'm sure centered around a meal. It's centered around some type of food event where we were together in community and enjoying one another. And so when we lose the ability to have that community because we can't eat and enjoy the foods that we've often enjoyed together, it's just really, it's psychologically really hard. So that is why we try to be as conservative as we can. That's why we try to move teeth before we put veneers or crowns on it, because at the end of the day, I'd rather not be in there, frankly. I really like watching YouTube. I tell patients all the time, I actually really, what did you do?
No idea. There we go.
What did you do?
You just wanted to be the only one on
Yeah,
screen.
wow. Birthday boy has control.
Yeah. See me. It's my birthday. See me.
Yeah, no, I just tell patients I really like watching YouTube and Instagram reels. I don't actually love being a dentist. So if I could not do dentistry today, that would be awesome, which I think they kind of get as a joke. But I'm just saying, like, I don't actually want to find a cavity. I don't want to have to do a filling today. I'm perfectly happy.
I think that's a very valid point, because, you know, that goes back into what we were talking about in the beginning, in that we're going to do what's right for you. We're not here to find what's wrong with you. As a matter of fact, I don't know about you all, but sometimes I see something on a radiograph or clinically, and you're like, oh my gosh, do I have to bring this up? You know, we've been doing this long enough, folks. I mean, you know, yes, we are. It is a business on our end. As we mentioned before, it's a business on the insurance's end too, but it's a business on our end. But we want to do what's best for you. We don't want to do what's best for us. We want to do what's best for you. And that's what makes us good, ethical, trustworthy clinicians, in my opinion.
Well said.
Agreed.
All right, Chad, why don't you close this out? Because we've burned our hour up with these fine people.
Well, we did. And, you know, there's just so much more that we could go into. And I think there may have to be a part 2 where we dive deeper into mechanics. But, you know, Dr. Horowitz really summed it up where, you know, I loved what he said. And I don't know that I've ever been able to verbalize that, or I've heard that. But mechanics, motivation, and hygiene. Let's move hygiene to the first. You know, put motivation second, and then let's put mechanics third, because there's a lot of things that clear aligners can do nowadays that they couldn't many, many years ago. But I think it's diving deep into you, the patient's psyche, and what's going to move you, what's going to be the best for you. And really go to a dentist that you feel that you can trust, that you feel that you connect with, and have these open discussions and try and truly find out what's absolutely best for you. I know that the 3 of us all still refer to orthodontists. We all still provide clear aligner therapy within our offices. We all have certain triggers that say it can be done here or it can be done there. But I know that each and every one of us have great relationships, not just with orthodontists, but with the specialists that we refer to and that we entrust with the care of our patients. And, you know, just find somebody that you trust. If you don't feel that click, it's okay to get a second opinion, and every single one of us welcomes that, because we want you to feel comfortable in the care that you receive. So with that, have a great night, and feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions. We're always happy to answer, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. So from the Dentist in the Know to all of you, have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you next week.
And happy birthday, Chad.
Happy B-Day.